This is Hannibal here from the HannibalTV.com with my weekly review of the points I find interesting in Dave Meltzer's Wrestling Observer. I did touch on this yesterday. I'll say it again today because I wish this company good luck. There's a big event tomorrow night in Philadelphia. I was supposed to cover this for the Hannibal TV, but sadly, because the drive-in border is closed for Canadians to come to the U.S. right now, I can't make it. But ECW Arena tomorrow night, it's going to be an amazing show. Battleground Championship Wrestling, and I hope to be there for their follow-up event in December. Hopefully, things will be more back to normal by then. I'm really disappointed. I'm missing that. But I did get to interview Tony Atlas tonight, who is in Philadelphia, because there's also an Icons of Wrestling convention at the ECW Arena. Tomorrow, I think it starts at 10 a.m. He's in town for that. And I suggest people listen to that interview. His Wi-Fi wasn't the greatest for the first part, but it steadily improved as the interview went on. And he was very entertaining. So let me get into the Wrestling Observer news that I find interesting. Of course, you can buy the whole Observer if you want more details. This is very interesting. WWE and AEW are both running the UBS Arena pretty much with like 1 week in between. Raw is running it on November 29th, and there's less than 1,000 tickets sold. AEW is running it on December 9th, and they have 5,500 tickets sold in the first day. So I'll quote Dave Meltzer here. He said, "Houston, we have a problem." End quote. I'll agree with him on that. And I will have to admit this, no matter what I say, either the WWE trolls are going to be mad at me or the AEW trolls. If I say WWE got a higher rating 1 week or it's an equal rating, they'll jump on me. And the same thing for AEW. But I will have to say I did watch the highlights from both Raw and Dynamite this week, and I found Dynamite's highlights more entertaining. Maybe it's because I like Rosario Dawson. I don't know, but I definitely thought that Raw with Big E winning the WWE title, which, by the way, Tony Atlas agrees with me. He discussed it in our interview that Big E doesn't have it. He's not going to be the next Hulk Hogan. He's not going to be the next Steve Austin. He's not going to be the next Rock. They should have just left it well enough on Lashley. But I don't know who makes those decisions. Maybe it's Mick Foley's son or daughter named Noelle. I don't know if that's a boy or a girl, nor do I care. All I think is it's ridiculous that they're on the WWE booking team. Apparently, Triple H is taking calls from talent now, but being told not to talk business. Everything's being kept quiet about the status of his health. Samoa Joe was stripped of the NXT title under weird circumstances. Apparently, he only suffered a minor injury and would be back soon, but WWE told him to vacate the title, which is weird. It made me think back to reading Dynamite Kid's book back when he had a legitimate serious back injury and he had to drop the WWE tag team titles. And they actually did an angle where he's literally being carried down the aisle and they make an excuse for the title to be dropped. But he actually showed up at the arena with a broken back so they could do the title switch. And it's like, in this situation, it's just a minor injury and they're just going to vacate the title. They're not just going to work around it and maybe do a real short, easy switch, because vacating it definitely leaves a lot to be desired, especially in the promo when he doesn't look injured at all. And I like Samoa Joe. I was tag team partners with him before. This is obviously WWE's creative idea. I just find it weird. Now, I did talk to Charlie Haas about this week, and so I'm already aware of this contract situation because I guess Charlie Haas has a lot of connections with USA Wrestling still. But he was telling me about this, that I guess Gable Stevenson talked to Ariel Helwani this week, and WWE is kind of sponsoring him next year to win the NCAA title again. So he is going to go to school another year and try and win another NCAA title under WWE's sponsorship. And they are also going to have a private training facility for him very close to the University of Minnesota, where he'll be able to train for WWE as he is training for NCAA. And Meltzer brings up that he will have a second contract that will go into effect in about April or May, whenever he's done with that NCAA tournament. That will be more of a full-time contract. And Meltzer points out that Stevenson, as an athlete, has more credentials than Lesnar, but he doesn't have the physical presence of Lesnar. I agree. There's no doubt Stevenson is a fantastic wrestler, but he definitely doesn't have that intimidation factor. He has more of a boy next door look. And even though he is in top shape, he doesn't have the muscularity that Lesnar had. Apparently, the WWE Smackdown, that was a combined show featuring John Cena and Brock Lesnar in MSG last week, did 13,323 fans with 10,800 paid. Bobby Lashley was advertised for the show but did not appear. The AEW show this week that just took place in Newark, did 13,190 fans and 11,500 paid. So the AEW show in the same market actually outdrew the WWE show. And I remember when Billy Graham was selling out Madison Square Garden, they would have over 20,000 in the actual garden. Then they'd have another over 4,000 in the Felt Forum, where they would close circuit the show. And whatever the old number used to be, 23,000 for a sellout there. Now, I don't know if they said it was a sellout or not, but they had 13,323 fans for the first WWE taping in Madison Square Garden since the pandemic, which, yes, we are still in the pandemic, especially here in Canada and with these restrictions that are still in place. Hence why I can't drive across the border this weekend. But things are opening up a bit. I'll get into more of the news here. There was a Dark Side of the Ring show that came out this week. I still haven't watched, involving the plane ride from hell, that apparently they give Dustin Rhodes a pass, even though he was quite frisky during the plane ride from hell, to say the least. And after I watch it, I'll do my own take on it, because I haven't seen it. I've talked to people about it, but I haven't seen it. But according to reports, they kind of gave Dustin Rhodes a pass on it, which doesn't surprise me, because Dark Side of the Ring is very favoritism towards AEW overall. But according to court documents, Dustin was very frisky as well as Ric Flair and Scott Hall. But Ric Flair apparently was allegedly did his little gimmick that he always liked to do, get naked under his robe, flash flight attendants, and according to this episode, he actually tried to get one of the flight attendants to touch his dick. And because of this, Car Shield campaigns, which were featuring an ad campaign by Ric Flair, has now pulled their advertisement, and they've said, quote, "We take these matters very seriously. As of right now, we are pausing the campaign, and we will do our due diligence pending additional investigation and decisions." End quote. So Tommy Dreamer, who was on the plane ride from hell, I guess stuck up for Ric Flair, and he now is indefinitely suspended from whatever his job was at Impact Wrestling. I don't follow Impact. I think it's a shitty company. So I really don't know what he was doing for them, but apparently it was a fairly high up position. I have nothing against Tommy Dreamer. He tried more than anyone else other than Ty Bailey to get me hired by WWE, but Johnny Ace just never hired me during the tryouts that Tommy Dreamer was sending me to, and I haven't seen it, so I can't comment on whatever Tommy Dreamer said, but apparently he said something that pissed people off, and now he's being suspended and getting all kinds of heat. I do have to say one thing, and I have not seen this. One thing I wonder, usually when settlements occur, particularly in WWE, you can't talk about like what happened and what you were accusing them of and so forth. So I'm wondering if this airline stewardess is going to be in breach of her settlement, saying stuff like this when she took money in a settlement. Now, I'm just wondering, I haven't even seen the episode, but will WWE sue her if she's in breach of the settlement? Because unless it's been proven in court, it's hearsay. So that's the thing. If it's 20 years later and she hasn't pursued charges, it'll be interesting to see what WWE does. Now, again, I will watch this show myself. I don't know much about the whole situation. Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar are going to face off in Saudi Arabia on October 21st, which is a Thursday at 1 p.m. How many people are going to take time off from work in the U.S. to watch Brock Lesnar versus Roman Reigns live at 1 p.m. on a Thursday? Not many, but they're probably getting a ton of money from Saudi Arabia to do the match there. Some figures for you. WWE in Washington, September 11th, did 6,624 fans. September 12th in Albany, they did 5,152 fans. Boston for Raw on September 13th did 6,600 paid and 8,100 total fans. NXT for their relaunch in Orlando this week did 280 fans, which is more than the 180 that I think they had the Performance Center set up for in the past. And as I previously mentioned, AEW in Newark did 13,160 with 11,500 paid. Madison Square Garden, 13,323 with 10,800 paid. Apparently, they did the angle on Rampage last week where Chavo Guerrero was turned on by Andrade. because he's going back to work as this wrestling coordinator for Young Rock because they're about to start filming the second season. I personally think Chavo Guerrero is very overrated. I've posted a bunch of videos of him on not just my channel, but other channels. And he gets like hardly any hits. He's not popular at all online. He has the Guerrero name. I think that's about the best thing he has going for him. He was most entertaining to me when he had Pepe in WCW, and it's all been downhill from there, in my opinion. One of the most boring. Chavo Guerrero and Dean Malenko is the cure for insomnia, to put those two in the ring. Two of my least favorite wrestlers to watch. Speaking of boring products, Meltzer brings up, well, wrestling is looking strong. Ring of Honor is clearly the coldest it has ever been, with lack of interest both in polls and attendance. Their big September 12th Death Before Dishonor show in Philadelphia drew just 340 paid fans and only had 36 poll responses. Because of the poor attendance, they have canceled all house shows and live events until December's Final Battle pay-per-view in Baltimore. And they will continue to tape television in empty arenas. Apparently, the strategy in this, the excuse they're using, is by doing empty arena shows, the fans won't get the spoilers out. And Meltzer points out that now that everyone has fans again, fans do not want to watch empty arena wrestling, particularly every week. And Meltzer also points out, at this point, Ring of Honor's popularity has declined to where even if they were allowed to have fans, there would hardly be any in the building, so the atmosphere would not be great. He's got a point there. Even on a closed set, I know NWA had some shows that drew 30 people or less in recent months, but like some reaction, even 30 people is better than nothing. The Great North Wrestling events that I was allowed to promote in August only allowed us to have 100 people. And they only put that rule in after I'd already sold more than 100 tickets to the original event. So I had to add a second event and try and get people from the first event to go to the second event because they had a health inspector at the door. They weren't going to let me break the rules. So our second event, because we only had 5 days notice or so to promote it, only had 85 fans. And I can tell you that 85 fans is a better atmosphere than no fans. And the wrestlers felt it. And I think this is a huge mistake of Ring of Honor. They're already practically an unwatchable product. And then to continue doing shows with no fans, you're just putting more and more dirt on your grave there. PCO's contract expires November 30th. And according to Meltzer, he gave 2 months notice to Ring of Honor that he is not going to renew the contract. He's going to work through the end of the deal. Meltzer points out that Ring of Honor signed PCO to what he called the best contract of his career when he signed on December 1st, 2018. At the time, he was a hot guy coming off the crazy stuff he was doing on the indies, and that's no longer the case. It would be difficult for him to have got a new deal at the same number, given his age, and the gimmick has run its course. I do agree the gimmick has run its course. And I'm sorry to say that because I do like the guy, but I do believe the gimmick has run its course. But I also believe that he will be signed by AEW because, as I mentioned when this news first came out, he personally told me that there was interest in him from AEW around the time he originally signed with Ring of Honor. But because of his age, he wanted to go somewhere that was already like in operations. And they apparently signed him to a 6-figure deal. So at one point, they even made him Ring of Honor champion. And I'll tell you how terrible the booking is in Ring of Honor. And at one point, they had some guy, Marty Squirrel, or something like that. He had sex with like a 16-year-old when he was 27. Now he's been pretty much canceled. But they had him booking and a lot of bad bookers there. But they made him Ring of Honor champion. And he got it front page news in Montreal. He went to a Canadiens game. They announced him as the Ring of Honor world champion at the Canadiens game. The whole crowd popped for him. Montreal and Quebec is a place where they will support one of their own. And Ring of Honor had not had a great crowd at that point since the Madison Square Garden show, where originally Cody Rhodes and the Young Bucks and all those other guys were going to be on the card. But by the time the show happened, they were not working for Ring of Honor anymore. But my point is, why I'm bringing this up is the dumb booking by Ring of Honor. They could have gone to the Verdun Auditorium or the Pierre Charbonneau Center. Both of these places hold like 4,000 or 5,000 people in Montreal, and they could have sold out with PCO as the champion. It was a waste making him champion and not going to Montreal, because the Montreal fans would have come out to support him and you would have had another crowd to hang your hat on. But you wasted his the publicity that he got in Quebec for becoming Ring of Honor champion. So it's just, that company is horrible, in my opinion. Dark Side of the Ring for the Plane Ride from Hell did a 0.07 rating, which is quite a bit better than the 0.02 Impact usually does. Brian Cage has a knee issue and will not be on the Battleground Championship Wrestling show later tonight in Philadelphia that I was talking about earlier in the broadcast. Bobby Fish, who was just released from NXT, will be replacing him against the former Buddy Murphy. So, again, I am real sorry I'm not covering that show. NXT this week did a 0.12 rating. Raw did a 0.43 rating. Dynamite beat Raw 0.44. And I'll give credit where credit's due. They did a point higher than Raw. When was the last time a company beat Raw since WCW? You guys can say last week, when they both had the exact same number, that they technically beat them by like a fraction of a number. But this week it's 0.44 to 0.43. So yes, Tony Khan is a multi-billionaire, or his father is a multi-billionaire. He's got tons of money to throw at it, but I think it's good that WWE finally has some competition so they can pay for stupid decisions like making Big E champion. An incredibly boring wrestler, in my opinion. Rampage did a 0.27 rating last week to SmackDown's 0.65 rating the same night. So they've definitely fallen a lot. I guess the CM Punk debut was a blip in the radar. Two UFC contenders, Joseph Benavidez, sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, and Carlos Condit retired this week. I do know Carlos Condit, not familiar with the other guy. Conor McGregor got in an altercation with Machine Gun Kelly prior to the MTV Video Music Awards, September 13th. The story that TMZ put out is McGregor asked Kelly for a photo. Kelly blew him off, and McGregor threw a drink at Kelly. Security grabbed McGregor and his cane, which he needs help to walk with after his broken leg went flying. Photo came out with McGregor being held back, attempted to throw a punch at Kelly, who was much farther away than McGregor could have reached. McGregor denies he was trying to throw a punch at Kelly. Apparently, they've made up since. I do have to say I did security for Machine Gun Kelly once at the Algonquin College Theater here in Ottawa, and a fan ran on the stage, and I got to remove the fan from the stage, which was a lot of fun. I always love tackling and throwing out fans. But other than that, I think maybe he's become more popular since then. I forget how long ago that was. I'd have to look it up, but it seems like it would have been almost 10 years ago, or maybe it would have been around 2016 now that I think about it. 2015, 2016-ish. I don't even think there was 1,000 fans at that concert. So it's definitely good publicity for Machine Gun Kelly to get in a little tussle with Conor McGregor. Jake Paul says he wants to box George Masvidal next because he's got a name and talking ability, but he figures Dana White will not allow that. Because he said, quote, "Your fighters can't box for shit," end quote. He's great at talking trash. Apparently the Triller pay-per-view, which had Ortiz getting knocked out by Silva in the first round last weekend, and Donald Trump commentating the Vitor Belfort knocking out Evander Holyfield in the first round, it only had 150,000 buys. So everyone's estimating that is a gigantic failure based on what they paid everybody. The exact purses have not come out yet, but Donald Trump, for one, has said he was paid a huge amount of money to commentate the Holyfield match. And there's a lot of controversy related to that show because Holyfield took his fight on like 1 week's notice, and many people think he shouldn't even have been in the ring. And by the way, Tank Abbott did did a reaction to both of those fights live on the Hannibal TV. So I was responsible for one of those buys because I bought that pay-per-view so Tank Abbott could watch it. And people can check that out. He did not feel sorry for Ortiz. He actually laughed at Ortiz. I think it has like 25,000 hits now, Tank Abbott reacting to Tito Ortiz's knockout. And he actually felt bad for Holyfield, which was shocking to me. And he asked for one of my Hannibal 420 sweaters, by the way. So because he did that reaction video for me, he's getting a Hannibal 420 sweater. These are another one, the Hannibal TV sweaters. If you go to thehannibaltv.com, you can buy these things. And the link is also in the description to our merchandise store. They are very comfortable. MCRUE78 tips me $9.99 and thanks me for everything I do. Wishes me more success. Glenn says, "You up-and-comers don't do stuff that'll follow you the rest of your life. In other words, lead a boring life. You could die at any time." Okay, I've already had defeated Hep C in my life. I've had cancer issues in my life. I was stabbed in the face and almost died from blood loss. Thank God there was a off-duty paramedic there when that happened. But you can die at any time, so I would say live your life. Herb Simmons says another great show. Oh, by the way, before I close off here, Piper had a grooming today. She wanted to show off her new haircut to everybody. She also appeared in the Tony Atlas interview earlier. So I know she wanted to show her lovely haircut. And Sean says Piper rules. The only Roddy Piper still around, and trust me, she is rowdy. I just woke her up. But she is fearless. She'll go after any dog out there. She'll go after skunks. She'll go after foxes. She's wild. So I was going to sign off, but I got a $5 tip here. Why is it that the late 80s and early 90s icons still bring ratings? Because they are interesting. I agree. I fully agree with you. So we'll end on that.
Thank you for watching the Hannibal TV. Please like this video if you enjoyed it and click the subscribe button to not miss any of our latest shoot interviews, match videos, or news updates. Support us